Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn halachos Megillah. We will be learning today Mir Hashem Daf Kuf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, beginning a brand new Siman, Siman Tafresh Tzadikei, Dirshu Seudas Purim, Ubay Dalet Seifim. These are the halachos of the Purim Seudah, and we have here 4 Seifim in this Siman. I'm going to have to be giving a little bit of an abbreviated share today. My apologies, but I did not want to miss a day without giving a share at all. So I think we'll probably move through most of the page, but there are certain things I would like to speak about at greater length that maybe I will expand upon tomorrow. So let's go. Siman Tafresh Tzadikei, Dirshu Seudas Purim, Ubay Dalet Seifim. Very interesting. We have here an unusual Siman in that the Siman begins with a Hagah of the Ramah before the Mechaber even had a chance to say anything. So the Ramah says, Hagah mitzvah laharbois b'seudas Purim. He brings down from the Torah that there is a mitzvah to be marbe b'seuda on Purim, u'b'seuda achas yotzim, but you should know you're yotze the chiyuv of Seudas Purim with one Seudah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Aleph, u'b'seuda achas yotzim la'afuke. This comes to stand in contrast, miman da Amar, to the opinion the chayiv lechol gam balaylo shel yudalid dumyu de Megillah. There's the man da Amar, who says that there's actually a chiyuv to eat 2 seudas, that there's a chiyuv to eat a seudah by night as well as by day. Dumyu de Megillah, similar to the chiyuv of Mikra Megillah, which is both by day and by night. Umikol Makaim, nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim, even though the Ramah came over here to tell you that you're only required to have 1 Seudah by day, and you are Yotze the Mitzvah Zayim of Seudas Purim, nevertheless, B'Kamakim, Nachain, it would be proper, Lechol Gam Balayla, and we're going to see this later on, it is proper to be Marbe B'Seudah a little bit at night as well, Ukidl Kamei B'Sif Aleph B'Hagah, like the Ramah himself is going to say shortly in the Hagah in Sif Aleph. So the Ramah opened up the Siman by telling you should know the chiyuv, the obligation of Seudas Purim, is only 1 Seudah by day. But later on he's going to say there still is an inyan to be marbe b'seudah by night. Now let's go to the Mechaber. Sif Aleph says the Mechaber, Seudas Purim sha'asa balayla, if you make a Purim Seudah by night, lo yotzi yedei chevasa, you're not Yotze the Chiyuv. If you only make a Seudah by night, you're not Yotze the Chiyuv of Seudas Purim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Bei Sha'asa Balayla, Hainu B'Leil Yud Dalid. This means if you make a Purim Seudah, you daven Ma'ariv, you hear Mikra Megillah, you come home and you make a Purim Seudah, and you don't make one the next day, you're not Yotze. And says the Chavetz Chaim, clearly that's the night that the Mechaber is talking about. In other words, there's a possibility we might possibly understand the Mechaber in one of 2 ways. Maybe when he says Balayla, he means Purim night, right? The night going into Yud Daled, or Yud Daled, as we would call it in the parlance of Pesach. Or maybe it meant Or L'Yom Tesvav. Maybe it means what we would call Motzoi Purim. So maybe the Mechaber is telling you you're not Yotze your chiyuv of Seudas Purim if you eat a Purim Seudah Motzoi Purim. But maybe if you eat a Purim Seudah Purim by night, maybe you are Yotze. Says the Chavetz Chaim, certainly not. Certainly that's not what the Mechaber meant. The Balel Tesvav Libnei Ayaros, to tell you that you're not Yotze if you eat a Seudah Motzoi Purim, right? The night going from Yud Daled to Tesvav for the Bnei Ayaros, people who live in open cities, for them that's Motzoi Purim. Pshita. It's obvious that you're not Yotze Seudas Purim. You eat then the Kvar Hovar Zmana. What do you mean? Purim's already over. I don't have to tell you that you're not Yotze Purim Seudah by eating a Purim Seudah when it's not Purim. So to tell me that you're not Yotze Orla Tesvav, there's no reason for the Mechaber to tell me that. To tell you that you're not Yotze Orla Yodalid, that there is a reason to say, because it is Purim. Nevertheless, says the Mechaber, you're not Yotze Seudas Purim by eating the Seudah on that night. It has to be by day. Hagah, says the Ramah, second line into the Siman, Hagah umikol makom, nevertheless, gam balayla yismach, definitely Purim night, you should be misameach, v'yarbek tzas b'seudah, and you should be marbek tzas. You should have a nice meal. You should be marbek tzas besuda Purim by night. Says the Chavetz Chaim, is gibel v'yarbek tzas besuda va'afilu kishachala yudalid b'maitzai Shabbos. The Chavetz Chaim says this is true even if Purim is on a Sunday. If Purim is on a Sunday, then Purim night is Motzei Shabbos. What's the Chiddush? Says the Chavetz Chaim, afilu kishachala yudalid b'maitzai Shabbos. Even if your dalit is Motzei Shabbos, the also Seudah Chashuva b'Seudah Shlishis. So you're coming off of Shabbos, and you just had a Choshev Seudah by Seudas Shlishis on Shabbos. You had a Choshev Seudah. Now you're telling me that Purim night I should be Marbe b'Seudah again? Says the Chavetz Chaim, yes. Become Makar Tzarich laharbeis K'tzas Balayla l'chvoid Purim. Now Motzei Shabbos, you have to be Marbe K'tzas b'Seudah l'chvoid Purim. Ach Eino Seudah Kamar l'Machar. But again, that Purim night Seudah is not like the Seudah you can have tomorrow by Purim day. Desham tzarich laharbeis yoser. On the Purim day Seudah, then you have to make a beautiful choshev Seudah. That's the mitzvah of Seudas Purim. Kasra Achrayim, the Achrayim write, the Nachayin Lil Boish Big Day Shabbos, it is proper to wear Shabbos begadim on Purim, Gan Kem Miba Erev, even Purim night. V'yimtza achakach bebeisai neiros dolkais, and when you come home from shul Purim night, there should be neiros on the table for simcha, the shulchan aruch, and you should have a beautiful set table, umito mutzas, and the beds should be made nicely. So we're treating this like a Shabbos and a Yom Tov. You're supposed to be, it's Purim, it's supposed to be a shtickle Yom Tov. So you should have neiros, and you should have a shulchan aruch, and mito mutzas. Even on Purim night, don't think that Purim night is a kalya, that you don't have to do anything Purim night and everything should be saved for Purim day. No, that is not the case. Says the Mechaber Sif Beis, very well-known Maimer Chazal from Dav Zayin Amud Beis in Megillah, Chayiv inish levesume bepuria, a person is chayiv to indulge in drink on Purim, ad delayada bein Or Haman lebarach Mardechai, until he could make a mistake and he could err between what? Between Or Haman, cursed is Haman, and Baruch Mardechai, and gebenched is Mardechai. What exactly does that mean? What exactly is the mistake that you're making over here? Okay, let's take a look here in the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Dalet, Bein Or Haman. The wording of the Chavetz Chaim over here is a little bit difficult. I wonder if a typo didn't fall into the text over here. But let's read it as best as we can. Bein Or Haman. Shezeh Mapala. This Mapala of Haman, Rishona. That's the first thing that we have to be misamech for. In other words, the Mechaber says that we chayiv inish levesume bepuria ad lo yoda, until he could err between what? Between two things. Now the Chavetz Chaim is defining what are the two things. Shezeh Mapala, the Mapala of Haman, Or Haman, the Mapala of Haman, Rishona. That's the first thing. Shenital Nekama Rabba Mimenu, that we took tremendous revenge against Haman, who tried to promulgate his decree of genocide against us. So that's one thing that you have to celebrate. V'oid toiva yisera mizeh, and then there was even a bigger toiva, which is interesting. V'oid toiva yisera mizeh gedulas Mordechai, which is after the salvation from the genocide. You know, this is kind of like Dayenu, right? By Pesach, by the Seder, we say, Ilu karolanu es hayam, if you would have split the Yamsuf for us, v'loy kervanu l'fnei Har Sinai, and not brought us to Har Sinai, Dayenu, right? If you would have saved us with Kriyas Yamsuf, but then you didn't bring us to Har Sinai to give us the Torah, Dayenu, right? Even that would be enough. So, al achas kama v'kama, toiva kfula umuchupeles, that the Rebbeinu Shalom, not only he saved us, but he did such gavaldik toivas for us. So too over here. One thing that we have to celebrate is that Pashut, the Rebbeinu Shalom, saved our lives. He saved us from genocide at the hands of Haman. But then the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't stop over there. He didn't stop just by saving us. Then he gave tremendous gedula to Mordechai. And by giving tremendous gedula to Mordechai, he gave tremendous gedula and kavod to Gans Klal Yisrael. Right? It says in the Megillah, the Harbe Me'am Aretz Misyadim, people ran to go convert, and all of the governors and everything else, they ran to elevate all of the Yidden to positions of power, because they saw that the Yidden are now in favor. They saw that by the king, Haman is ois, and now Achashverosh is elevating Mordechai. He's elevating Yidden. So we all became elevated. Now that was something above and beyond our salvation. It could have stopped right over there. The Rosh saved us, Haman was hung, and then life goes back to the way it was before. But no, alakas kama v'kama toivik fulu mechupelas aleinu, that the Rosh went ahead and he elevated us beyond where we were before the whole story of Purim. So when the Mechaber says that Chayiv Adam L'Vsume B'Puri Ad Lo Yoda Bein Or Haman L'Baruch Mordechai, says the Chavetz Chaim, it's these two items. One, Shezem Mapala Rishona. The Mapala of Haman was the first Taiva. Shani Tel Nekama Rabba Mimenu, that we took tremendous revenge from the evil Haman. Va'oid Taiva Yisera Mizeg Gedulas Mordechai. I don't think he means that this is a bigger Taiva. In other words, it's not a bigger Taiva to elevate Mordechai than to save us from genocide, right? If you would just elevate Mordechai but have us all killed out, obviously that would be Gardish Verit. But it's Yisera. It's extra. That did not have to be part of the salvation. We could have been saved and everything could have gone on business as usual. Instead, he did a Taiva Yisera that he elevated us. Now, V'hinei, says the Chavetz Chaim, Koidem shenishtaker, before somebody indulges in drink and becomes drunk, certainly he would thank the Rabbeinu Shalom for both of these tayvos. So Chazal are telling us, don't stop being misameach on these tremendous tayvos until you're so misameach that already you can't tell the difference between these two tayvos. Okay. That's the way the Chavetz Chaim sums up this idea of Ad Lo Yoda Bein Or Haman L'Baruch Mordechai. I had a machshava that I wanted to add, this concept of Ad Lo Yoda Bein Or Haman L'Baruch Mordechai. It is human nature. It's an unfortunate maybe piece of human nature. But when we are threatened, or Nebuchadnezzar Aleinu, when somebody has a tzara, he turns to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Somebody has a tzara, Nebuch, doesn't even have to be a huge tzara. Somebody's struggling with parnasa, right? He's struggling. He's used to being okay. He's used to having everything well off. He's used to being well taken care of. He's used to being able to go into the month paying the bills without a problem. And now suddenly maybe he loses a job, or maybe he has to take a pay cut, or maybe for some reason inflation, his expenses went up tremendously, and now suddenly he's struggling. So he says, you know what? I got to say Tehillim. He starts saying Tehillim. He goes to the Rav. The Rav says, listen, you got to have kavanah, Shema Esrei, Baruch Aleinu, Shema Aleinu. So he goes, he starts to be mispalel, he's davening, he goes to the Rebbe, he asks the Rebbe for a bracha. Now that he's struggling, suddenly he's turning to Bari Olam. Things get easier. Things get simpler. Oh, okay. Baruch Hashem. Salvation. Baruch Hashem. Maybe he'll make a Seudah Seidah even. But then, things kind of go back to normal. Dirshu Zatzal, Rav Moshe Zeki Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, writes in many different places in the Sfarim, people forget that they have to thank the Rabbeinu Shalom every day for what they have, and that they should be zoichet to keep what they have. Don't only be mispal for what you're lacking. You have to be mispal to keep what you have. Why do you have what you have? Only because the Rabbeinu Shalom is bezaki you to have what you have. And if you continue to have it tomorrow, it's only because the Rabbeinu Shalom is bezaki you to have it tomorrow. So you always have to be mispal on a constant basis. I think over here we could see a little bit the same gedank. And that is, the Chavetz Chaim is laying out to us very nicely that there was two different factors. One factor was Or Hama. And that is, like the Chazal say, Gedola Hasaras HaTabas, that the act of Achashverosh taking off his tabas, his signet ring, and giving it to Haman, that drove the Yidden to more tshuva than all the Nevi'im and the Nevi'os, right? Suddenly Klal Yisrael was faced with Nebuchadnezzar, a terrible, terrible, terrible tzara, and a terrible threat, and that drove them to go be mispal. But then, after the salvation came, then there was a Baruch Mordechai. Baruch Mordechai, now Baruch Hashem, look what's going on. Now they're elevating us all over the place. Now we can take the kama from our enemies. Now our enemies are afraid to open up their mouths. They're afraid to stretch out a hand or to open up a mouth. So Baruch Hashem, everything is good now. But are you makir toiv to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Or you're makir toiv to the Rabbeinu Shalom for Or Hama? Or Hama, yeah, I felt terribly threatened. I didn't know if there was going to be a tomorrow. I was under Exeris Mavis. I mean, there was mamash a threat of wiping out Gans Klal Yisrael. Now you saved me. I'm tremendously makir toiv that you saved me. 2 weeks later, it's in the past. Now we're riding high. Yeah, well, of course we're riding high. What do you mean? Mordechai. He's a big shot. So since Mordechai's a big shot, so now we're all big shots. Now we're all riding high. But do we thank the Rabbeinu Shalom for that on a constant basis? Or now that the tzara and the threat is forgotten about, we don't bother? Take a look nowadays. Baruch Hashem, the prosperity, the ashirus that we have nowadays, even to a large extent, many who are struggling. Do we really know what struggling means? I take care of matzah, hashgacha, and production for Yeshiva Staten Island for Pesach. Prices of matzahs are out of control because the matzah bakeries, they can't get workers. Nobody wants to work. Why should they work? The government is paying them to stay home. Older people who usually work at rolling out the matzahs, the Edeklach don't want them to go to work because they're afraid of COVID, and there's plenty of money around, so you don't have to work. So the prices of matzahs have gone through the roof. And I wonder, are people going to cut back their orders? People are going to order less matzah. Then it struck me. My father, Oliver Shalom, when he was growing up before the war in Salish, how many pounds of matzah do you think they had for a whole Pesach? Now people go ahead, they order matzah, they 18 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds. You have to have plenty of matzah. What do you mean? And you're going to give everybody their own matzah, 3 matzahs by the Seder. And you're going to wash by every meal, chalamayid and Yom Tov and everything else. And what do you mean? And there has to be plenty. And you're going to make matzah kugels and matzah latkes and this and that. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but the ashiras, the expectations that we have, I mean, they're unbelievable. Are we makir toiv to the Rabbeinu Shalom on a constant basis for what we have? Or is it only when Nebuchadnezzar is at tzara, suddenly then we're flocking to the Bati Knesiyos and to the Bati Midrashos, and we're putting out kol kaires that we have to be mispal and we have to daven? But do we give the same? Do we stand the Shemona Esrei 3 times a day and thank the Rabbeinu Shalom for what we have? I think a little bit what we're seeing over here is chayev inish levesume beporia ad lo yada beit or haman lebaruch Mordechai. You have to drink on Purim until all of your koichi va'otzim yadi, all of your chishbonis go out the window, and you realize that there's no nafkamina between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. There's no nafkamina between our requirement, our chiv, to pashut thank the Rabbeinu Shalom al kol neshima v'neshima, to thank the Rabbeinu Shalom on every breath that we take every day, to thank the Rabbeinu Shalom for the breakfast that we ate this morning, to thank the Rabbeinu Shalom for the gesund that you have. Don't wait until you're sick, chas v'chalila. Make an asher yotzar, how many times a day, and have kavana. That's Baruch Mordechai. And the chiv to express the hakaras hatoiv for the Baruch Mordechai is just as big, if not bigger, than the Or Haman. The Baruch Mordechai, Baruch Hashem, is Tag Teglich. Every day we have the Baruch Mordechai. There's so much that we have to thank the Rabbanu Shalom for on a continual basis. That's the Baruch Mordechai. But we get confused. We think, Or Haman, that, yeah, we have to make a ganze Seudah. We have to thank the Rabbanu Shalom. And yeah, every time there's a tzara, I'm sure we have to go and be mispal and say Tehillim. That we realize. But Baruch Mordechai, when everything is going smoothly, well, yeah, of course it's going smoothly. What do you mean? It's supposed to go smoothly, right? No. You have to thank the Rabbanu Shalom for Baruch Mordechai. And sometimes it takes Chayiv Adam Levesume. Because the cheshbonis that you have in your mind and the thoughts of Kaichi Vaitzim Yadi, that what do you mean? Everything is going smoothly. Because what do you mean? I know how to take care of myself. That has to go out. And sometimes that only goes out maybe with drink. So Chayiv Adam Levesume Bepuria Ad Lo Yada Be Or Haman LeBaruch Mordechai. Let's go weiter here in Mishnah Berurah Katan Dalet. Va'ayin be'Elio Zuta, the Chavetz Chaim says, take a look at the Elio Zuta, to become Mokim, even though the Mechaber is telling you have to drink, Mikal Mokim, nevertheless, Yireh, you have to see to it, Li Yoizahir, to be careful, Be'inyan Netilas Yadayim, don't go ahead and get drunk and then not forget to wash for the Seudah. Uberkas HaMoitzi, you have to be careful with your brachas. Uberkas HaMazon, you have to be a mensch and be able to bench at the end of the Seudah. Via Simcha Shal Mitzvah, and the Simcha should be the picture of a Simcha Shal Mitzvah, not the picture of a wild drunken party. Vayin b'Pri Begadim shekasav. Take a look at the Pri Begadim. It writes the Indian Seudas Purim u'matamas lavyonim u'mishlach manos efshe detzar kavana al zel l'shei mitzvah. Pri Begadim says these are mitzvahs. You have to have kavana to be yoitza the mitzvahs. Let's go to the Ramah 4 lines down. Hago. V'yesh armim de'eit tzarich le'ishtaka kol kach. The Ramah says there are those that say that you don't have to mamish become drunk, that you don't understand what's between, you're making mistakes between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Elo yishta yaiser milimudai, drink more than you used to drinking, v'yishan, and then go to sleep, umitashi yashein, and once you're sleeping, eini yadeh, ben Or Haman, leBaruch Mordechai, and then obviously when you're sleeping, you don't know the difference between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Ve'echad amarbe, ve'echad amamit, the Ramah says, whether you do more, whether you do less, it's okay. Ubelvad sheyechav liba l'shamayim, as long as your kavanos are l'shem shamayim, and like the Chavetz Chaim said, it has the tzura of a simcha shel mitzvah. The Aruch HaShulchan says over here, he says, the Gemara Issa, the Bechayv inish levesume beporia ad lo yada ben Or Haman leBaruch Mordechai. The Aruch HaShulchan says it's a tema, it's a wonder. The Imkain, if you're telling me that you have to indulge in drink until you don't know the difference between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai, Imkain certainly is shikar karov l'shikure shel loit. You have to be almost as drunk as Lot was, when we all know what happened. We darf das nicht sagen what happened in the cave with Lot and his daughters, how drunk he was. The Aruch HaShulchan says to make a mistake between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai, you have to be almost as drunk as Lot was. The Aruch HaShulchan says this doesn't make sense. So he says, V'Rambam like kasa b'loshen zeh. The Rambam does not bring down the loshen of the Maimer Chazal that Yemechayiv l'sume b'puria ad lo yoda ben Or Haman leBaruch Mordechai. The Kosav, instead, what the Rambam says is teshoisa yayin ad sheyishtaker. You should drink wine until you get drunk. The yirdaim b'shechrusai, so that you fall asleep from being drunk. Not that you start acting like a nutcase because you're drunk. Not that you start acting like a chaya because you're drunk. You get sleepy, right? So after the first kais, sometimes by the seder, or the second kais, you get a little sleepy. So you should drink until you get sleepy. V'yirdam b'shechrusai ad kan l'shoynai. V'ulai hayom mefarish ad lo yodam b'nei shenirdam. And maybe that's what the Rambam meant, that he understood the Maimer Chazal, Ad lo yada ben Or Haman leBaruch Mordechai. Why? Because you're sleeping. V'zeu k'moshe kasav Rabbeinu Ramah, which is what the Ramah says. V'zeu l'shaynai. V'yesh oimrim de'eit tzarich l'ishtaka kokach ela sheyishta yoser b'limudai v'yashen u'mitay sheyishen any yadeh ben Or Haman lebarch Mordechai, v'echad amarbe, v'echad amamit, u'lavachi chav liba l'shamar ma kadishaynoi, v'zehu kedivrei harambam. Ice cut hay in the Mishnah Berurah, v'yishan v'yitashi yashed, v'chein royal asais, the Pri Megadim says in a chinami, that's the way to do it. Now, when it comes to the Purim Seudah, what you're supposed to have by the Purim Seudah, the Aruch HaShulchan is also very beautiful over here. The Aruch HaShulchan says, Mitzvah laharbois besudas Purim, tiksiv simcha umishta. It says in the Megillah that they made the day of Purim a day of simcha and mishta. The Ketzad choyva Seudazu, what exactly is the chiyuv of this Seudah? Shayachal basar. You should eat meat. Fleishig Seudah, says the Aruch HaShulchan. V'yasakein Seudah no, and it should be a beautiful Seudah. Kefi asher timtza yodai, as much as you are able to do. Kach kasav Rambam. Umashma the basar vaday tzarich. From the Rambam, it's pretty clear that you need basar. The biladai zeh ain't chashivas, because without basar, it's not a chashiv Seudah. Ach, nevertheless, says the Aruch HaShulchan, sha'arei ma'chalim yasik k'may b'yomtiv. You should make other side dishes and everything like Yom Tov. Ubesuda achas b'yom yasa yidei chavasai. You yotze the chiv one suda by day. Ubelaylei tzarich laharbeis besuda. You don't have to be marba besuda by night. We saw in the Ramah that it's an Indian to be marba besuda by night. Vesudas purim shachal belayla be'leil yudal be'leil tasvav lo yasa yidei chavasai. Diksiv. Now here the Aruch HaShulchan gives the reason why you can't be yotze the mitzvah of Sudas Purim by night. Tiksiv Yemei Mishta, because it says in the Megillah that they made Purim Yemei, days of Mishta and Simcha. Yomim Veloi Leilos. Umikamokaim Gam Balayla Yismak V'Yir B'Ktsas B'Suda Lachar Megillah V'Afil Chalba Masoi Shabishu Savei Ami Shabbos B'Kamokaim Nochain L'Smayach B'Ktsas Seudah. Okay, I'm going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The discussion of limud HaTorah should be Megan against Klal Yisrael. The Baruch should say Yeshua Sefurus Parnasa and should do to all those in need. And we should be zeicher to see the Bias Goyel Tzedek B'Mehera V'Yameinu. Amen. Be well.